we're going to start looking at how to write expressions from words. A lot of times I refer to this as translating expressions. It's like you're taking something that is written in the language of math or mathish, and you're writing it to English, or you're translating it from English into mathish. Before we can do that though, I think we need to go over a few vocabulary words and which operation they would refer us to. When we talk about addition, a lot of times you're going to see the word and. That word lets us know that we are combining things. Sometimes you're going to see more than. For example, Desiree has $5 more than Olivia, and Olivia has $6. The word some means the answer to an addition problem. That's one that's expected knowledge. You should have that memorized from elementary school. And then sometimes you're also going to see increased by, which also tells us that we're adding. When it comes to subtraction, some of the keywords you're going to see are fewer than, or you'll see decreased by, you'll see less than, or you'll see the word difference. This is another word that's kind of a keyword that you should have memorized in elementary school. The word of will often represent multiplication. So that's one to remember and get memorized, stuck in your brain. Like if you see something that says half of a variable, half of an unknown number, that means you're multiplying 1/2 by that number. Twice or double also represents multiplication, as well as product, which is the answer to a multiplication problem, one of those expected knowledge words, and sometimes you'll simply see times. When it comes to division, if you see that word per, remember that means for one, we've talked about that. Or if you see split evenly, this represents division. Quotient is the actual math word for the answer to a division problem, and sometimes you're going to see divided by, and that represents division as well. You have this chart now in your journal, so you'll be able to refer back to it and when you get to where you are actually translating some phrases here in a little bit, and use that as a guide to help you. So here what we have is we have words that are giving us a math expression. These are the English version, and we're going to change it into the math version, mathish. A lot of times you're going to find that these expressions are going to give you a variable. There's going to be an unknown. So you've got to make sure that you write those variables in the unknown, that you're using the same variable that is in the problem. And these variables should always be lowercase. You should not capitalize them, because that means that there's some sort of mathematical operation that you have to do to arrive at what that variable stands for. For example, if you have a capital A, that means the area of something, which means you're going to do some multiplication. So for our work for right now, all of your variables need to be lowercase, and you need to be very careful with how you write them. Make sure you write them neatly so that they don't look like a number, and we'll get to that in a little bit too. So let's look at this first one, 5 plus a number D. Pretty simple and straightforward. All we're doing is we're going to take the number 5, plus tells us to add, and we're going to add that to D. The second one, the product of 5 and G. So product we know tells us to multiply. Remember, we're no longer using an X to represent multiplication. So that means that we're going to have the number 5 and this variable. In algebra, the way that you write this is you put the number, what's also called the coefficient, first, and the variable just sticks right next to it. There's no sign in between. That means that they're being multiplied. You must put the coefficient, the number, before the variable, before the letter. If not, I will count it wrong. Because if you write it the other way, yes, it represents multiplication. But a lot of times there's confusion where it looks like this is G raised to the 5th power. So we never write it this way because of the fact that it looks more like an exponent than it does a multiplication problem, which 5 times G is very different than G times G times G times G times G. The subtraction problems, like here we have fewer than, which is one of the words that we talked about earlier, are the ones that can be super confusing because the order really does matter. So you've got to ask yourself, what is being subtracted? What's being taken away? So here we have 11 fewer than a number F. Let's substitute in 20 for F. If we said 11 fewer than 20, you would know that that would be 9 because you would take that 20 and you would subtract the 11 from it. So that means this is F minus 11. Same thing here, 17 less than H. If we used 20 for H, 17 less than 20, we would say, oh, well, the answer is 3 because that 17 is being taken away. So then this is H minus 17. The quotient, which tells us divide, of 20 and T. 20 comes first, so this would be 20 over T. Be very careful with how you write your lowercase t's so that they don't look like a plus sign. Neatness matters. So here we're going to take these and we are going to write them in words. So we've got the variable we're using is Q and it's being combined with 5. So we can just say the sum of Q and 5. There's lots of different ways that you could write this. 3 minus T, T's being taken away. So we could say T fewer than 3. And here we've got Y being divided by 5. That fraction sign, remember, always means division because a fraction really is just a division problem. So this would be the quotient of Y and 5. Or you could say Y divided by 5. Lots of different ways that you can say to write this. You'll be typing your answers in on formative today. So be very careful. Make sure you're using the same variable that is in the problem and don't try to substitute it with something else.